cost was for this project. So at this time, I feel it is important for us to get the forensic audit completed, because as the representative on the legislative body of the Homeless State Council, I believe it would be irresponsible to move forward without getting clear answers and making any further monetary decisions about this project until we see what has happened. So I respectfully request your consideration for the completion of this forensic audit. For those of you who may not have known, we heard it yesterday in the Budget Committee, and the recommendation was to make changes to the current version of the resolution, to do an amendment to the resolution, to make the authority for the forensic audit be put back to the Honolulu City Council, and that we will also pay for the audit, understanding that HART may not be in the position to approve the forensic audit and or fund it. So there is a CD1 version in play to bring that authority back to the Honolulu City Council for the approval of the audit and for the funding of the audit. And I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Members, any questions for the council member? Nope.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Me again. I think I heard you say completion of the audit before any other funds are spent. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I feel at this point we need to be, especially now with 3 subpoenas being out by the Department of Justice. For myself personally, I take the responsibility very carefully as to making decisions, and with the pending subpoenas, and we don't know for sure what they're looking at, but whenever a subpoena is issued, we do know that there's a criminal nature, criminality behavior, something that they're looking at to prosecute. And so also the reason why I was asking the forensic audit, we may or may never know what those documents produced, depending on the outcomes of that case. So for me, as an elected official, I have to be very cautious in my duties in taking any action on this project. Personally, I will be very cautious in approving any other funding for this project until we really figure out what is going on. So as you may know, yesterday, Resolution 19-30 also asked for additional funding for an extension of the Waipahu station, another entrance. So I did vote in opposition to that because of that very reason, that I don't think at this point we should look at approving any additional changes to the project. I do know we have many underway already up to Middle Street. We have contracts already completed and let out, but what I'm saying is anything additionally at this point, I think we have to proceed with caution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
Thank you for being here, council member. Were you aware of the fact that at one time we did have $250,000 in the budget to conduct a forensic audit?
I am aware, and I really feel that I think we all feel in hindsight we should have moved forward at that time, and it was unfortunate that that action wasn't taken at that time, because I think we would have better ideas right now.
And I believe, Mr. Robbins, you used that money for the P3 study. It was transferred from that line item for the P3 study?
I'm not aware that it was a direct transfer.
That's what you told me, that you were going to use the 250 for the P3 study.
The original study was about that.
Yeah, so I've tried, but failed.
I appreciate that. And bringing up the P3 study, I do have to say I'm put on the table today also concerns about moving forward on anything, including the P3, unless we have concrete financial statements as to what that's going to look like. Because I do believe, looking in hindsight as to what has happened with this project, a lot of our issues have come from making decisions prematurely without the full scope and understanding of the cost to the city. So I am asking, and I will be attending regularly to find out very concrete details as to what the cost will be long-term for the P3, as well as any other costs moving forward. So I look forward to being here on a regular basis and working with all of you on this very important issue.
I concur.
Thank you.
Lloyd?
Mr. Chair, just a couple of comments and clarifications. I mean, going to John Henry's point about the transfer funding, I don't recall that being the case. I believe the money was reabsorbed back into the budget, and any money spent on P3 was added. I mean, you could say that that money went to spend on that, but it wasn't it wasn't transferred in the way that you suggest. I think that people may infer from what you said. Second, you'll have a chance when I'm done. Second, I think I want to clarify. one of the problems, I think, for the public's benefit, that, these grand jury subpoenas shouldn't be taken, nothing should be inferred, and that there has been criminal activity suspected at HART. They're simply subpoenas for documents. Yes, the grand jury is investigating something we have no idea what that is, but they're just getting documents for us perhaps to use in the prosecution or to get information and understand better what they are looking at. But I just want to clarify that it shouldn't be taken that it's something that reflects on HART, other than the fact that we have documents that may be related somehow to something else that's entirely different that they're looking at. I just want to make that clear, because I don't think it's fair to HART and the staff, or the board, or the city and county to have the public believing that these subpoenas are a direct reflection that there's something going on wrong here, as opposed to somewhere entirely different, some other case that's been in the press that somehow relates or is tied into something or somebody that was, to HART. Just want to make that clear.
I would just, if I could, respectfully disagree, only in the point that they wouldn't be looking at HART documents unless it was something to do with the project. So as much as it wouldn't have to do with the people sitting here today and with HART as an entity here today, I do believe that they wouldn't be looking into HART documents unless it was related to the project.
I would respectfully, as a lawyer who spent his career in law, disagree with you that that's the case. And that's exactly what I'm trying to clarify, that no, it doesn't necessarily mean that HART was involved in any criminal activity directly. It just means that something that HART was involved in, it relates to something they're looking at, but there may not be any direct involvement, certainly, and I don't think that implication should be made, so I have to respectfully say that you're wrong about that.
I just have to respectfully say that we do have to at least agree to disagree, that for the case being, we don't know what they are looking for and we don't know what the outcomes are, but so until we find out for sure, we know that it is HART documents they're looking at, so we do have to consider all options on the table and move forward with caution.
Okay, but though I would ask the same way I asked Ms. Wallace, if you have any indication you know more about what's going on with the grand jury than anyone else, please let us know, because we're curious too.
I don't have any further indication, but I do know as an elected official, it is our obligation to proceed with caution. So if there are red flags, and it is definitely a red flag, anybody involved should proceed with caution, and that's all I'm here to say, is that we do need to proceed with caution. Thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a matter of clarification, during the Hanabusa reign as chair, I requested that $250,000 be put in the budget to conduct a forensic audit, and it was done. It was unanimously approved. Mr. Robbins advised me that he was going to use those funds for the P3 study. And so that's a matter of clarification.
That doesn't mean that that's exactly what was being done in terms from a budget standpoint. Again, the implication being that Andy was robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that's not the case.
I'm just saying
that the money would have lapsed
is
already.
the fact, okay? That's what happened.
No, John Henry, it's not what, okay, if you're saying that's what Andy said, well, that's between you and Andy. What I'm saying is, from the board perspective, which is responsible for the budget and transferring money back and forth, I don't recall that being the case. And so there was nothing backhanded about money being transferred that you requested for one thing and I was used for something else. Oh, you didn't? I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. That's only what I heard.
I did not. You did.
I got a question.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna end that discussion. Damon, you have?
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman Tsuneyoshi. So I just want to clarify, you're asking that we stop all work until the forensic audit is done and not continue with the P3, and which in case would delay the intermediate opening of the rail and cost a lot of jobs to those that are not working or working on the project now.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify,
Yeah.
Chair Kim. To clarify my statement on that, what my intention is, I do absolutely 100% support any and all work that is provided to our local men and women, hardworking men and women. I have and continue to be in support of the project, and as I said yesterday in the committee hearing, I would have hoped that at this point when I was elected that I could come on board and say everything looks so great, and I'm so very excited that we can look toward a successful completion of this project. What I am saying is, as an elected official to the Honolulu City Council and looking over the assets of what is our taxpayer money, I think that what we do need to do is proceed with caution in the fact that we have so many other things that we need to pay for within the city with our core services that need to be paid for. And we already know that within the recovery plan, $44 million is included for construction of rail, which it was promised to the general public that we would never use construction for rail. So what I'm saying here and now and asking for your cooperation on is that we cannot break any more promises to the people. And a promise that I made for the people is that before I take any action or make any decisions, that I ask for the answers that we have been asking for a long time. So specifically with regard to the P3, what I'm saying, it is a new concept. It's something that we weren't considering at the start of the project. So before we decide that that's a definite plan of what we should do and how we should move forward, I think that we do need to know very specific details as to what the cost is to the city. So what I'm here today asking for is that we have details as far as what the cost is to the city long term and a very good breakdown of what that looks like. I understand that the P3 includes the operation and maintenance program of the HART, and I just want very clear answers as to what that looks like and how those monies are going to come through and what the repayment plan is to the private partner that we're going to use and what our options are for that repayment portion of the P3 project, because as an elected official, that's what I need to be looking at is how the burden to the taxpayer and the burden to the city if that repayment schedule gets off course for any reason. So I'm just asking that those answers be provided to us, because moving into the budget process as a council member, we do need to know those answers before we decide any or give any support to further action.
If I can ask for, because I'm not clear as to your answer, if you, so are you saying don't spend any more money other than what's already contracted for and we're obligated to do? Or don't spend money on P3, which is an entirely different thing, or what? I'm not clear what your answer in response to Chair Kim's question was.
So specifically, my answer is that we have the last 4 miles of this project left to do. We are contracted up to Middle Street, is my understanding. So from Middle Street to Kapolani, we have still a lot of tied up. A lot of still variables still for the last 4 miles. So what I'm asking from the board is that we get together and really get specifics as to what those last 4 miles look like before we move forward on authorizing any more spending from the city council. So anything that, what I'm saying is anything that comes before the city council, as in yesterday, resolution 19-30 came in for an additional amount for an extension to the Waipahu station, and I did vote in opposition. Things of that nature to things that are not currently programmed for, I will be voting in opposition for unless there's good reason as to how that's going to be paid for. So yesterday is an indication of my position. So resolution 1930 was voted in objection to because that wasn't included in the budget, and I don't know where those funds are going to come from, and that will be my position moving forward.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to dominate things here, but I guess it's just one of those mornings for me. The only thing, last thing I just want to add to that is, I don't think anybody disagrees if there was waste, fraud, and abuse, we want to find out about it. I think my point earlier to Ms. Wase was really to find out whether there was any evidence of such a thing, notwithstanding the audits we've had. The only other last thing I just want to point out is that I think from the short time that I've been on the board, it's been apparent that obviously things weren't, in the early days, we didn't know necessarily, we as a city and county, let alone as a HART, how to do a project like this. And though having been involved in various construction contracts or the various companies I've worked with for the years, I understand how these things happen. But one of the things that happens is that because of litigation, because of delays that are created that throw us off schedule, we end up spending a ton of money to have to recover for it later. And so I just want the public to be clear that the doing a forensic audit may uncover something that the public wants to know about, but it will be at a cost to the project. And that's a cost that they should be aware will inevitably occur if there's any delay in constructing the project as it is. We're on a very tight timeline. We have made promises Now, that about the delivery date deadlines for which the project is going to occur, and we are trying to, honor our promises in that respect too, because that's what the public is owed as well. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Yeah, Ember?
Thank you, Councilwoman. With respect to your resolution, and I understand why you've explained very clearly why you think it's an appropriate resolution, and I'm not prepared to talk about that issue until we get to that portion of the agenda. But I wanted to point out to you that as a board, as a volunteer board, we're not paid. We come here because we've made a commitment to our appointing authorities as well as to the public to serve in this capacity. As a volunteer board, we are limited in our scope and our purpose. We have one single construction project, and we make policy with respect to that one single construction project. We are not a transportation agency. We are not an all-purpose governmental entity. We're none of those. We're one single construction project. And under the charter, we are responsible for building the rail and implementing the council's directive to construct the minimum operable segment, which is Kapolei to Ala Moana. And that's our primary purpose and our primary mission. As a board, we have adopted a financial plan that limits it to a certain amount of money, the $8.1 million, plus the recovery plan, what the FTA and the PMOC have recommended, that their view of how much it may increase. We've committed as a board to that financial plan, and we are bound and determined to stick with that. And as a board, we can make a different decision, obviously, but as a board, we can't make any other decision today or in respect to anything else until that matter comes before us. And the second part of it that we've committed to, and that's the schedule. And the schedule is to have interim service as much as we can, and I know there's some issues on that which we will be looking at hopefully when we tour the alignment and the areas affected in March. But we have an interim deadline and we have the full operation revenue service date. And as a board, we have voted and committed to that schedule. So the timing and the money have been a board decision. So when your resolution, regardless of whether or not the council may conduct a forensic audit or somebody else may audit us for something else, those are things we have to deal with as an organization. But we have to remember that our charge is to build this rail within our financial plan and within the schedule that we have adopted as a collective organization and as a board. And that we kind of lose focus with that because we get so bogged down with all of the demands on trying to figure out if in the last 7 years of this project that somebody has been engaged in some kind of misconduct, criminal or otherwise, or negligence. And I don't want us as a board to lose sight of what our mission is under our charter, and that's to build the minimum operable segment within the budget and within the timeline that we as an organization have agreed to do so. And so whenever there's questions about let's wait, hold off, let's stop, and let's not fund, those are things that we as a board, we can't control. But we can control our commitment to build the minimum operable segment on time and within the budget as we know about it today. So I just wanted to share that with you in terms of our focus. So when you ask us to stop, delay, don't do this, I don't know if we can, because our job is to make a commitment to move this project forward.
Thank you, and thank you. And I know as the former managing director for the city, you do understand the implications of what has happened at the city with what has happened up to this date with this project. And I know you understand the very real realization and responsibility of the city to make sure that when the taxpayers have concerns about this project, that we come and do our fiduciary responsibility to ask the questions that need to be asked. And I thank you for reflecting and providing that synopsis as to what the board responsibilities are, and I'm very clear on that. But as to your own omission, discussing that the HART is only responsible for the construction of rail, then at this point, I also want to bring up the fact that within the P3 that you are looking at now contains the operation and maintenance of the plan. So maybe we need to talk about that P3 and how it includes construction and operation and maintenance. If your fiduciary responsibilities of the board is only construction, then maybe we need to look at the fact that the P3 is including O&M and talk about the issues with that as well.
No, you're absolutely right, Councilwoman. The P3 does include the O&M, and that was a joint decision with the city and the DTS and this board. And in fact, this board said many times that if the city isn't on board in agreement with including that in the P3, then the P3 as a delivery mechanism was a no-go. And so we're pretty clear on that, and you're absolutely right on that part of it.
So that you're saying you were working with the city, I'm getting confused because previously you said HART has to be contained to what the HART's duties are, and you're not beholden to the city. So you said that was...
No, I didn't say we're not beholden.
Well, not beholden, but your primary responsibility is for the HART board and the construction. You mentioned that a number of times. So all I want to bring up in your statement that you just said now is that you're working with city and DTS to include O&M in the P3. So that kind of doesn't make a lot of clarity in my mind as to how decisions are made, because at one point we only decide decisions relating to the HART board, and then the very next statement we work with the city to include O&M. So that is why I'm here today, and that's why I will be here on a regular basis, because we need to be very clear as to the statements that we make and the actions that we take. And if O&M shouldn't be included in the P3, now's the time to talk about it, which is why I'm here to talk about the P3, because as an elected official, I am not comfortable with making decisions unless we have this discussions and have everything very clear and on the table moving forward. Thank you.
Members, any other questions for the council member? No? Thank you. Any more testimony in the public? Nope, seeing none. Moving on to agenda item